Hello, listeners. This is Teddy. Today's episode is about Wisconsin. Here are some facts about Wisconsin. Wisconsin entered the Union in 1848 as the 30th state. As of July 2016, the population was 5,778,708, 20th in the country. The biggest city is Milwaukee. The capital is Madison. The governor of Wisconsin is Republican Scott Walker. Senators are Republican Ron Johnson and Democrat Tammy Baldwin. Wisconsin's economy is driven by manufacturing, agriculture, and healthcare. Wisconsin leads the country in cheese production. The median household income is $55,425, which is 28th in the country. Hope you have a good Christmas and Happy New Year.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Two Broads Talking Politics. As usual, I'm your host, Sophie, and I'm here with your co-host, Kelly. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
And this week, we are having a very special Wisconsin-specific episode. We have with us Beth, Matt, and Rob to talk all about Wisconsin politics. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us. And hopefully this will be the first in a series of state-specific episodes. Let's just start off by everybody just talk about how you got into politics and what you do in Wisconsin politics right now.
So let's start with Sophie.
I'm Sophie, and I live in Madison, which is the capital of Wisconsin, and I've lived there for about 3.5 years. So I'm just starting to get into Wisconsin politics.
And this is Kelly, and I have no formal relationship with Wisconsin, except that I live 90 miles south of it. But my husband grew up in Wisconsin just outside Milwaukee till he was, I think, 8 or 9 years old, and he still has a lot of family there. So we go to Wisconsin fairly frequently, and I'm obsessed with all things politics, so I think about Wisconsin politics, and to me it seems the reason we're starting with Wisconsin is that it seems kind of the ground zero of all sorts of interesting political things right now. So why don't we move next to Matt?
All right, so I got my start in 2010 when I was a college student. I interned for then Senator Feingold's re-election campaign. I worked on various campaigns since then, and last year I got elected as the youngest county chairman in the state to Waukesha County. We're the third largest Democratic base, and we're also known as the Republican stronghold of Wisconsin. So that's kind of my unique honors getting to serve in Waukesha County, which is generally an uphill battle.
All right. So Rob, you want to tell us a little bit about your place in Wisconsin?
Sure. So I actually grew up in Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and my dad was really active in local unions up there, so that kind of got me going in politics. The first campaign I worked on was doing different field work for Art Stupak in his 96 reelection campaign, who was the longtime congressman from the 1st District of Michigan. So after college, I moved down to Milwaukee, because it's the nearest large city. Kind of floated around for a little while being a musician of sorts, and got re-engaged in politics after Scott Walker became governor. From there, I was the state coordinator for Progressive Democrats of America for about 4 years. I served on the National Peace Action Board for a couple years, leading into their merger with Peace Action West. We helped facilitate that. And then I was elected as chair of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County in 2015, and just wrapped up my term this past November. As of right now, I'm officially retired but active.
All right. And then Beth, you're in Madison, right?
Yeah, I moved here about 1.5 years ago from the Chicago area. Down there, pretty blue stronghold. I would attend events, but I wasn't really a activist leader. So when I came up here and Trump won, it just felt right to take a more active role. So as of right now, I'm an organizer for Indivisible Madison and a group called the Wisconsin Progressive Alliance, and then a member of my local Dem party, so the Dane Dems.
All right. So everybody's in sort of southern Wisconsin. I think it's probably not surprising that trying to get together Democrats. We ended up with a lot of people in the southern part of the state. But you all know more about Wisconsin geography than I do. So is that based in any sort of reality?
Well, you kind of got the three most important counties in the state as far as Democratic vote turnout. If that's any help.
Yeah, that I all the people I know who live in Wisconsin live in the southern part of the state. And so to me, Wisconsin feels very much like it's full of people who are big in unions, who are frequently Catholic, and who vote Democratic. So that's my whole view of Wisconsin. I'm sure it's a lot more diverse than that. But, most of the people I know in Wisconsin are in Milwaukee. And so it could be that that's just representative of Milwaukee.
Yeah, so with the German and Polish populations, the Catholic part reigns true.
And it feels like Wisconsin has always been blue as long as I've been paying attention. So has there been sort of a recent shift in politics, or is it sort of a long, slow shift, or what's your view on that? Rob, do you want to speak to that maybe?
Sure, I'd say that it's kind of gone back and forth over the years. Traditionally, in presidential elections, going back to when Reagan was president, the state went blue. However, for a lot of that time, we had Republican governors. We did have Democratic senators for most of that time. So there was a definite shift that occurred during the Tea Party movement of 2009, 2010. So, I'd probably say we were more of a purple state because there was always a balance, but it definitely shifted hard right leading into that 2010 election.
And it's Beth. I can say since then, that 2010 election had a lot of repercussions statewide because that's when the census was redone. So the Republicans kind of were swept in on that Tea Party wave around 2010. That's when I believe we got Walker. And then with the Republican governor and Republican legislature, they were able to redo the map. A lot of computer modeling and almost surgical precision to maximize Republican votes in the state. And now, I think it was the last election, 49% of the votes went Republican, I think, and 66 out of 99 seats in, do you guys know if that's the Senate or the Assembly? Is one of the, so you can see there's a big disparity between the way people actually vote and our representation on a state level.
Yeah, I know somebody had asked on Twitter if we could talk a little bit about gerrymandering in the state. There's a case before the Supreme Court, I believe, out of Wisconsin. I think it's Gill versus Whitford.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to have pretty national implications. What do we think about that case, and what do we think about gerrymandering in Wisconsin in general?
This is Matt, and I think Wisconsin you can look at as kind of ground zero for one of the most atrocious forms of gerrymandering nationwide, where in 2012 where we elected Tammy Baldwin and reelected President Obama and had just great Democratic turnout across the state, we still had an overwhelming majority of Republican assemblymen reelected because of the gerrymandering they had done to districts. And I mean, there's in southeast Wisconsin, there's a state Senate district that got cut like within blocks just so the incumbent could stay in his current district and have a safer district. And I think, once the Supreme Court reviews that and hopefully overturns it, you'll be looking at a much more fair map where you'll get more of a balanced approach to the progressive history of Wisconsin. Because I don't think Wisconsin's had a huge shift conservatively, but I think that between the voter suppression that's been put into place that hurt Milwaukee in 2016 and the gerrymandering that's hurt in 2012 and 2014, it's easy to think Wisconsin's turned really red.
It's tough. Again, I think what a lot of the mainstream coverage misses about Wisconsin is that 2016 was the first election we've had with statewide voter ID laws. I mean, Trump won by like 27,000 votes or something, and they think, hundreds of thousands of people could have been blocked from voting from the voter ID laws. So it's maybe not that people shift, it's that there's more dirty tactics to keep people from voting. And that's kind of my specialty. I work a lot in that area.
So what do the voter ID laws look like in Wisconsin? Is it, what forms of ID can people bring? They have to bring them when they vote? What happens if they show up at the polls without ID?
So Wisconsin's considered a strict voter ID law because in several other states that have voter ID laws, you can sign an affidavit that if you don't have an ID for some reason or you forget it or it's broken or lost, you sign the affidavit and you are basically swearing you are who you say you are, and if it turned out you lied, that's a felony. So most other states that works as a way to vouch if you don't have a proper ID, and Wisconsin will not allow that. You can use like a driver's license, a passport. So the people that are most affected are low-income students and the elderly who, for some reason or another, do not have a current Wisconsin ID. I myself have gone through the process to get a student voter ID just to see how hard it was. And the first time I went, I was given incorrect information and had to go back the second time to like a different part of the UW campus from where I go to classes. So, I mean, the average person who's trying to get their finals might not really keep going back if they're not getting accurate information the first time. So it is a major deterrent, I'd say. And then it's purposefully very confusing. So there was another recent study that was done by the Dane County clerk and a UW professor, which found that for every one person that has the wrong ID or doesn't have the correct ID, there's two people that actually had the right ID, but were so confused by the complexities of the laws that they thought they had the wrong ID and just didn't go vote. So it's kind of insidious on multiple levels.
Part of that is that after they initially passed it, they kept changing what it was you could use or not use, which led to greater confusion going on as far as what you needed to be able to vote. And then in cases where you didn't have a driver's license or a state-issued ID, right before they had passed that, they actually closed a large number of DMV sites across the state, which made it harder for people to conveniently be able to get that ID.
Yeah, that seems so. I vote in Chicago, and I'd walk up to the polling place. I could have no ID at all on me. I walk in, I sign my name, and I vote. It seems, I know there are a lot of places where people use this rhetoric of, well, you need to have people show ID because there's going to be voter fraud otherwise. And I haven't heard of a single case in Chicago where someone was going and voting multiple times.
Yeah. There were a few people that were charged with it in Wisconsin, but they turned out to be Republicans. It was like one or two cases over the, a stretch of like 12 years. So millions of votes cast, and they only found two people or something.
And I mean, it's just not worth it because to get one extra vote in a race, that's a felony. And if you commit a felony, you're barred from voting until you're off paper. So you risk your ability to vote in the next, however many elections that take place while you have this felony conviction. It's just not worth the risk.
Absolutely. And I mean, the fact of the matter with voter impersonation fraud is that you're more likely to be struck by lightning multiple times than you are to actually commit in-person voter fraud.
All right, so that seems like an issue that Wisconsin progressives should be concerned with.
Yeah, there's a lot of groups that are working on it and have been. It's just, it takes a lot of time to educate people and get them what they need.
So what are the other important issues, do you think, right now in Wisconsin? We've talked about gerrymandering and voter suppression, but what are the issues that are sort of facing the state at large right now?
Well, this is Matt again, and I think, as I've been talking to folks throughout Waukesha County, the 2 to 3 biggest things I hear about most frequently is, people are concerned about good paying jobs. They're working harder and harder to make ends meet, and it continues to get harder and harder. They're concerned about their health care, and they're concerned about the infrastructure around them because Wisconsin has one of the worst rated road systems in the country, and yet we keep finding ways to delay or cancel our infrastructure projects. So that's what I'm hearing a lot in Waukesha County.
What are you hearing in Madison, Beth or Sophie?
I think one of the big concerns, like I particularly have, that I've heard some people echo, is just the amount of deregulation that's taking place across the board. And to me, regulations are in place to protect people. So there's a lot of environmental regulations, like they're talking about opening up mines in the northern part of the state again that would pollute the water system. The state legislature's deregulated wells that are, sucking up